So today I have the absolute pleasure to talk to Rav from Panjabi Hit Squad. First of all, I have to just say thank you so much for making the time out to do this. Um,
Thank you.
I've literally grown up listening to your music, so in a weird sense, it's kind of surreal talking to the person behind all of those songs and those memories. Um, so yeah, first of all, obviously, thank you. Second of all, how are you this morning? Because I know, as in it was a very last minute request to do this podcast.
It's cool. I mean, we're just recovering after a weekend of gigs and radio shows. So yeah, I think like usually the start of the week is kind of decompression and kind of just taking in exactly what's happened over the last week. For I think not only us but a lot of DJs and a lot of people that's in the entertainment sector, it's now really, really busy. It's very full on. You have to be smarter than you were before the pandemic and everything like that. So yeah, just kind of getting back into it and just kind of, realizing how good the weekend was really.
Yeah, I can well imagine. Has everything kind of gone back to normal then for you guys in terms of like pre-COVID and post-COVID?
I mean, I wouldn't say gone back to normal. I think that there is an element of still a little bit of fear that, not only just because that you could possibly catch COVID and all of it, that is obviously, a major thing there, but also that, when you're having a good time and, you're seeing, people come to clubs and ways that can also stop very, very quickly, as we've realized in Australia. Like, got friends over there that do events and they've promoted hard events and all of a sudden within a day they've had to cancel everything. So yeah, we're still in very, very testing times. Nothing's gone away yet, but I think we're getting to used to kind of now adapting to the lifestyle that is taking place.
No, completely understood. So obviously let's start with you and yourself, because what I like to do with all my guests is find out a bit about how essentially like everyone in the diaspora, how we ended up where we are. And a lot of the times, some of the kind of tales that I get told are just absolutely insane. And again, kind of going back to what you were mentioning just before we started recording, I feel like a lot of those, in a sense, could be made into like little kind of short series of films, because like those tales just unto themselves are incredible. So if you don't mind me asking, how did you and your family arrive in the UK? What led you to coming here? And how was it for you guys?
I mean, initially, my grandfather and grandmother on my dad's side, they were born in Africa, and then and my granddad passed away, so my grandmother and all my uncles and aunties came over to the UK in like the 60s, and they had to endure everything that came about being Punjabi, Sikh, turbans in a society that probably wasn't really ready for them. That's and also in London, where majority of people started to come over from, they go to Heathrow and all these places. So, you'd end up somewhere around the area. So that was that. My Nana and Nani were, my Nana was born in Lahore, which was at the time Punjab. And from there, he moved over to Africa as well, met my grandmother, and then they came over here, again in the 60s for, I think a new lease of life. Things had changed in the UK, and they needed people from other parts of the world to come and rebuild. And Sikhs and Punjabis and Asians as a general step forward, for various reasons.
No, definitely. So just out of curiosity, did your family go to Kenya in terms of working on the Africa in terms of working on the railways?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my in a similar situation, my dad's side of the family were from obviously originally India, then they went to Kenya to work on the railways,
Yeah.
and then Idi Amin started kicking everyone out of Uganda in the 70s, and so they just left.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually think my granddad was kidnapped on the border between Kenya
Oh,
and
wow.
Uganda. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I remember my grandma telling me this. I don't often ask her because it brings up, like, my grandfather's no longer with us, and it often brings
Yeah.
up kind of like memories that I guess my grandma doesn't necessarily want to revisit. But she
Yeah.
says that he was involved because he was a businessman. He was quite closely connected to the government in Kenya, and for some reason or another, he ended up getting kidnapped at the Ugandan-Kenyan border and somehow managed to end up in the UK.
Mm.
rang my grandma and said, look, grab the kids and come to England, leave everything.
Yeah.
It's not safe. And so hence here I am. But
Yeah,
no,
I mean, I think there's many stories of how Asians came to the UK. A lot of it came from post-war. Same thing, which in Africa they needed railways building, so loads of Indians went from and Pakistanis, Bengalis, everything went from Asia to Africa, and then from there they came over here because the passage was easier. And then when Idi Amin started kicking people out, that kind of caused a lot of situations as well, which, again, a lot of the Gujarati community in Leicester, if you speak to them, they'll have stories about that. And, there's a lot of, I think that it's very important to understand that people were leaving their families, their lives, everything in a hope that there'll be something better over in the UK because they hear it's better. And when they got here, it was something different.
no, no, definitely. Just then coming back to
Mhm.
kind of Punjabi Hit Squad and you guys, how did you all meet and how essentially what was the origin of you guys coming together? Because obviously for those who aren't aware, Punjabi Hit Squad I believe is a group of 4 people, right? You being
Yeah, it was a
obviously
four.
was a
Yeah,
4, okay, and it's now a
was four.
2.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
now a
that
2.
too.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So can you explain then the evolution of Punjabi Hit Squad from kind of day 0 up to where you guys are today in terms of how you came together and then have changed over time?
Well, I'm going to try to simplify it as much as possible because I think it's quite a long story. That's what it is. But initially, what happened is that we were DJs in the 90s. We started off as a sound system called Asian DJ Culture, and played at all the events, Bombay Jungle, Limelight, everything that up to this day that people talk about as the good old days. We were a part of those good old days. I was very, very young this time. So I had a friend who was called Raj. Him and Dee, and Dee was a lot younger than Raj as well, but they all were DJing before I was, and I kind of joined later on when I was in school, and I could show that I was good at my job kind of thing. It's kind of like I went from like the cleaner to like the supervisor to like trying to be manager quite quickly. But yeah, Raj started it all off, and then like the late 90s, Raj decided that he wanted to not only do DJing but start to produce music. He was good friends with Panjabi MC, Sunil Kalyan, like loads of different producers. Then he hooked up with another couple of one of my other cousins as well, which is how kind of I got to know them as well. We all went to school together. So I'd hear about stories about Raj and Asian DJ culture, and I would see D because he's a couple of years older than me. And then, like I'll know that. And then I think it was like when I was probably like year 11 or 12, year 11, sorry. Raj was like, look, why don't you just got coming and doing a couple of gigs here and there and blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of how I met Raj. And then and how I met D as well. And then what ended up happening is that we started to go to club nights, and I experienced this amazing club night that I had been listening to tapes of for years, which was Limelight Hot and Spicy, which was at the time like the mecca of Asian fusion with Desi beats and kind of where it was born. And when I got there, I met Mark, and Mark being the one of very few people that were white in Punjabi music. Me and him got along really, really well. And he was Raj's really good friend as well, and we all kind of just clicked. That's just how it was. Raj then in the late 90s decided he wanted to make an album. He went over to India and he passed away. So once he'd passed away, we had got like these vocals back from various people, Surinder Shinda and Kuldeep Manik and all these different people, and we did an album called Life After Death. The album sold well, but it was kind of like a little bit of a stop for us. It was like a natural kind of like, I don't think we can carry this on because Asian DJ culture was, like a couple of us, quite a few of us, and then all of a sudden the main person is not there with us. So, we were still using the name, but, we were kind of always looking for something different to kind of do and all the rest of it. And then one day, like Mark, who again, like, was also still involved in the Asian music scene and doing things. He was like, look, guys, I want to do an album. If you guys are up for it, why don't we collaborate and do an album together? So then we initially started off doing an album called Asian DJ Culture and Marky Mark. So that's why when you hear our first album, you'll hear Asian DJ Culture and Marky Mark like about 50 million times in every single song. Like it could have actually been its own song, to tell you the truth. And then when we realized, like, as in we started to play our songs out, we realized quite quickly that it's very, very difficult to keep on saying Asian DJ Culture, Marky Mark, and here we go, da da da. So we're like, I think we need to consolidate our name somewhere along the line and kind of make just one thing. I mean, at the time, we weren't even really thinking of like a brand. We were just thinking of like an album name. Like, how do we promote this? What do we say? And then I remember Rod saying to me, like, before he passed away, that the album that he wanted to call when he released it was called Panjabi Hit Squad, which was a whole load of singers from Punjab get together and it's a squad. So it will be like Surinder Shinda, Kuldeep Manik, Randeep Money, all these different people that were like absolutely amazing put together. So I was like, yo, why don't we just call ourselves Panjabi Hit Squad? And then it was like, okay, cool. That sounds okay, So yeah, that's kind of how we all formed. And then, we just went on a musical journey. Amo wanted to do something different, so he left. And Mark obviously was quite heavily involved in BBC, so he kind of wanted to do that. So that was, that was where he kind of led. But like Dee and I had always been connected with the music scene and Panjabi Hit Squad, which was our baby, basically, essentially. So yeah, we just carried it on, and we just did different things with it.
That's amazing. I like, yeah, and this is why I love having these conversations, because I always feel like I know something and then I ask a question and I get an answer and I'm like, wow, okay, I never knew that. Do you then think, in a sense, that like the term Punjabi Hit Squad was almost like it was almost like, not like a blessing, but it was almost like passed to you guys, as it was almost like, without being cliche, it was almost meant to be, in terms of how Raj had kind of given you the name and then obviously the circumstances that followed? Do you kind of feel like that also kept a part of him alive kind of in what you do?
Yeah, I mean, and I post this every single year, because I like to remember my friend, and Dee also likes to remember his friend, and so does Mark. I post this every year, and I say that, he's the reason why we are here, because I'm pretty sure there could have been thousands of other names that we chose. And actually, we went through some really, really bad names. And I think it's over lockdown, like, we've kind of brought up old files and found bits of papers that we've written. And like, we had some terrible name choices. Like, what can I say? And again, I think it's just because I remember this one conversation that we'd had, and I was like, I think this should be it, guys. Maybe this is our Asian DJ culture was our training, and now we've graduated from that, and now we move on to the big league with Panjabi Hit Squad. And it kind of worked in so many different ways. Not only was it a cool name, not only was it something that people gravitated to as well, but also it kind of meant that we kept the person that we loved within music most alive.
Yeah. No, I really, really like that. This is just a question off the cuff, really, which is like, what do you think is so when I was growing up in the 90s, I was like 10 or 12, kind of, when Punjabi, like when your guys' music, Panjabi MC,
Yeah.
The Carey twins, all sorts of like British Punjabi music was kind of, I wouldn't say mainstream, but it was very, very popular. Obviously, when Panjabi MC song went #1, that changed that changed everything.
Yeah.
And then you had Jay Sean's song with Richie Rich that got into the charts, and again that changed the kind of the landscape. Now, what is it about Britain and British Asian culture that lends itself to this? Because we've only started to see it in, say, other countries like Canada more recently. I feel like, obviously you're better placed to correct me if I'm wrong, but and I also feel like the British Asian music scene, although it may be over kind of recently, it's not necessarily as big or as popular as I think it was during like the 90s, early 2000s. Like, what is it that lends itself to that within the UK? Because like you named loads of people earlier, and a lot of them again have bases from the UK. So like what is it that lends itself to such a kind of a powerful music?
I mean, I think initially you've got to there's many answers to the questions that you've got there. So what you've got is firstly you have millions of Asians within the UK, and that's the first thing. So if you're looking at success that people have had within being on a major label, it's because that they have really been backed by their own culture. I don't think there is a song apart from like the usual like Bhangra Nights and all the rest of it that was kind of not produced by Asians, but it was kind of like that. But if you think about the songs that are really, really transcend everything that we've done, Punjabi MC's Mundiya Tabatke, by the time it even got to a chart position in 1998 when Punjabi MC released Legalized, it was massive. It was huge. It was huge within our own music scene. So by the time it got to the point where non-Asians were listening to it, it was already big. It already had a following. The Rishi Rich project, Jaggy D, Jay Sean, again, same thing. We were coming through with our culture so well and so strongly that, we didn't need anyone else. We just needed brown people to buy the songs and brown people to support. And that's what it was. We had our own ecosystem in place. What happened is that major labels had seen that and they were like, is there something that we're missing here? And then they invest into that, which is why Panjabi MC then got a top 5 record, because his song had then, Asians were not only buying it, and of course it is an absolute anthem and everything about it is just amazing. But also now non-Asians are hearing this song because now it's getting played on Capital FM or, so it opened up. And I think that that's just basically what it was. It was just the fact of that Asians were really, really supporting this music, and everyone now was being able to listen to it, not only on Asian music stations, Sunrise Radio or whatever it might be, they're listening to it now on Kiss 100. And again, Kiss 100 then sounded like what our club night sounded like, which was you could hear Panjabi MC, and then straight after you'd hear Sean Paul, and then you'd hear 2-3 songs, and then Jay Sean Jaggy D would play. And that was a very, very interesting and proud moment, I think, and especially for the British Asian music scene. We'd kind of cracked something. We were proving a point that our music was just, was on par of what everyone else was doing,
No, definitely. Why then do you think... So again, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're far better placed to understand the landscape than I am. But as in, so personally for me, I feel like since kind of the Punjabi MCs, you guys as well, because there was loads of songs that you guys had released during that time. I think if I say Ms Scandalous, a lot of people listening will know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
But kind of since then, there hasn't really, I feel, been much from the British Asian music scene, realistically, especially from the UK. Is that me just being naive to the landscape, or what has kind of happened over, say, the last 10, 15 years?
I think that the internet happened. That is the major thing. If you think of success that we've had, RDB have had, it came through the internet. Without a doubt, if you speak to RDB, you'll know that Cully was on designing websites from day one. I think that's actually what he used to do as a profession. So, we use the internet very, very heavy. So I think with that, our music went across the world very, very quickly. Also, what ended up happening was other music started to come back very quickly, which is, if you come up to speed now, it's probably the reason why we know about Sidhu Musiala. You know about him and you know about the movement and everything because you've got the music via YouTube or whatever it might be. So I think the internet has played a great importance. And I think that's I've kind of gone off a little bit, but I think that's probably the biggest thing. I think that the reason why that maybe the Asian music scene British Asian music scene doesn't exist as much is just because that there's so much now out there, where before it was very, very homed in on Britain. We've had some amazing acts from here, but now, it's more of a global thing. And I think some people think of it as a diss. I think of it looking like that for a long time. They thought that Bhangra music was only in 2 places, and that was in the UK and in India. It's not. It's everywhere. I can give you artists in Singapore that do this. I can give you dancers in Russia that dance to Bhangra music like as if it's their own. I can give you people all across the world that are doing it. And that I think that's where people need to focus on, that our music isn't small, it's big, it's huge. You know, why don't our artists cut through? I mean, there's 100 million reasons why not, but you know, you need to understand that our music is on a global scale. And I think people need to start bigging that up a lot more than they do anything else. You know, again, as well, you've got to look at it that the landscape is changing. You know, not everyone is into just a Desi beat now. You know, you have Sidhu Musiala, who I think for the longest time now has his biggest songs have been on hip hop beats.
Yeah.
You know, if you take Sidhu Musiala off of So High, you can replace French Montana on there.
Yep. Yep.
Right. It's so interchangeable. You know, so I think that everything now, you know, the younger generation are now just not only into Desi music, they're into fusing it a lot more. They're into rapping a lot more. There's a lot more. Also, you have to understand that music is art. It's a form of expression. So, you know, you now have Jaga, let's just say, who is clearly a Sikh. You know, he's not even hiding it in one little bit. But if you you hear his records, okay, apart from the fact that he does speak Punjabi in them as well, but you know, you wouldn't know that. You know, it's the way that he's expressing it. He hasn't gone and said, "Listen, let me make a Bhangra song for you." He's gone, "No, I find a way of expressing my art form, and I choose to rap." You know, and that's why I think that Juggar's important. You know, that's why I think Caps is important. That's why I think Pac-Man's important. That's why I think that, you know, you go across the globe, you know, you get so many different people that fit that realm of things, you know, and I think, again, you know, people need to really embrace that, man. You know, it's great.
No, I really appreciate that. Just then, this question kind of connects to what you've been saying. So I'm sure you're aware of the group NSG, right? And like they recently released a song Petite, and like I could have their entire album and sing, like I could have their entire discography on repeat, and like I've got no issue. And for me, what I find really captivating is they've blended, like, so they're all from different countries in Africa. They all have different backgrounds and ancestries. They all fuse their different languages, music, culture, everything into their songs. So you will listen to their songs and they'll be rapping in English. They'll move to like patois. They'll move to whatever other languages they have, and it's completely and beautifully seamless. Now, it then sparked up an interest in me, which was, why haven't we, or perhaps when will we see a group similar to that from a South Asian descent? And again, I don't really like using the term South Asian because it's kind of it doesn't really mean anything. And it's not like, think about it, whenever anyone asks you where you're from, you're never like, oh, I'm South Asian, right? Like, no one ever says that.
Okay, so firstly, I'm you know, I'm not sure that there's really much. I don't think there's anyone out there being a group. That's the first thing. So I think that once you get people that are like-minded together and they need to come together and do something, I think that's when you can now have a starting point. I think what you have is you have individuals that are doing great things, but collectively there's not really anyone that's coming together and going, yeah, this is the kind of thing that we're fusing, this is what we're doing, how we're doing it, whatever it is. So I think that's the first thing. I think why it will happen. I think it will. I think that there will be a time where people will realize collaboration is better than sitting alone and not doing much. I think you always need somebody along your side to kind of also sharpen steel. So, you know, that's also a good thing. And I think that also, I mean, I was having the same conversation with a friend the other day that the Asian music scene and Asian culture as a whole is kind of, we have our own ecosystem. We have our own TV channels. We have hundreds of radio stations. We have our own outlets, our own stores where to put music, apart from iTunes, obviously, you know, and all the rest of it. But everything is really there. So when it comes to, if you're really talking about, you know, do you need a major label to back you or your whatever it is? Do you? Because really all that they're providing for you right now is money and a route to have marketing. They're not providing you with a hit because the hit has to come from you. So the hit can come from anywhere. But really, that's the only two things that they're providing. And I think that that really people can do it themselves. And that's, I think, what's happened within the Afrobeats community and a lot of even the UK music scene is that a lot of these people have created hits themselves and then gone on to sell their music or sell their brand to a major label, which then gives them the marketing power. So I think it's on the horizon. I think it's just a matter of when, when will the next B21 come about, and so forth. And Jesse's probably going to kill me, but he knows that I love B21 because, it's what you said. They were the NSG of the 90s. They were creating music. They had, back then a major label, which was Movie Box, not a major label in mainstream term, but a major label within our own music scene. They had everything there, so I think it's just a collaboration thing, really. It's going to happen. It just when.
No. I really appreciate that answer because in my head, I'm also like, surely with the depth of kind of music knowledge and tradition, and also just the sheer passion for music within the Asian community, like you don't have to go far, and most people have some type of heritage of music, or there's something in the family always somewhere, or music isn't kind of that far away from celebrations within the Asian community. So yeah, no, it's quite positive to hear that you also think that it's on the horizon, because I'm definitely
it is. I think it's just a matter of time when somebody will wake up and go, let's get a collaboration going on. How do we do this? Afrobeat and NSG are a little bit different because at the moment, Afrobeat and anything that comes over from Africa is popping at the moment. And the thing is, it's a vibe. And I think that's where we had it in the early 2000s, which was vibe completely. I know that Dr. Zeus has released this song. We then come out with a song. I think within the space of say 3 years, we had Dr. Zeus is Under the Influence, Panjabi MC, RDB, Surinder Ratan, us, Hi. You had all of these amazing albums and music coming together because it was a time, man. Everything was moving, and that's what it is now happening with music from Africa. Is that they see it and they're like, you know what, we can now capitalize on this. Let's make music. But the music that's coming out is great. It's not even just substandard. Burna Boy, amazing. Wizkid, if you think of these people that are just, and I'm talking about people that are at the top of the chain, they are just breaking down every single barrier you can ever imagine, And I remember that Skepta said one thing that on a song with Wizkid that he said that the and I'm just paraphrasing here, but the images they show of Africa on TV is not what Africa is. So they want to see people on their face with flyers and how you might have seen Africa early 80s or 90s or whatever as being poverty, and don't forget, places are still like that. But there is this music scene that's out there that is rich, man, and you can't knock that. And that is what it is in India, and that's what it is in different places. If you look at the UK, we have that. We have that as well. Maybe we just don't capitalize on it as much.
No, definitely. Do you then think that so with music coming from Africa, obviously it's being capitalized. Do you think that kind of back in the 2000s, it was almost like the healthy competition within the Asian music scene almost lent itself to pushing everyone to do better? So kind of one album comes out and everyone's like, all right, my go, next album comes out. And and do you think that because kind of naturally with time and everyone kind of growing older, moving on into different things, do you think that landscape, because it's obviously changed, has kind of lent itself to not being as strong as it used to be?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, if you're talking about the 2000s, we're not talking about 2 years ago. We're now talking up to 20 years ago. It's a long time, and a lot has happened since then. But I think those producers, and of course some are still around. If you think that Punjabi MC is still killing it, Dr. Zeus is still killing it. These people are still around and they're still doing amazing things. So, that's there. But again, what happens is that you're right. Some people move into different areas, do different things, and that's natural. Not everyone is going to find them being a millionaire just doing music. You've got to do other great things. So there's a lot there. You know, I think that now you just have a different generation of people buying music as well. You know, again, you know, in the same way that Hira and Alap, while they are loved and they are absolute legends and what it is, you know, they might not, you know, translate their music as well to a 18-year-old as a Sid Musiala, you know, and again, like I think you'd be silly to see Jenny Singh all of a sudden start sporting a massive gold chain and try going up on stage. I mean, he's not in that whatsoever. Jenny is an amazing guy. You know, he's realized that his importance within Asian music culture is more than just music, you know, so he's doing things outside of music that are just amazing, you know. So yeah, there's so much there, but you know, I think that there's different things. Imran Khan, you have this opening up of Dutch artists that are coming through. And again, yeah, you know, Pakistani, the rap scene throughout India is huge right about now, you know, and I think that's not even really even opened up as much either. At the moment, everyone talks about, you know, Gully Gang and all that kind of stuff, but there's so much rap that comes out of India that is just unheard of, you know, like, and it's amazing, you know.
Man, no, I love this because I'm gonna now go and like Google Indian rap and like dive into some of this and find out a bit more because it just sounds incredible. This is just then a question that actually got sent in by someone, and I guess it relates to what we were discussing. But like, what have your experiences been of in the music industry, and like, have you seen kind of opportunities change over time, or like, what has it been like? Because from the outside, there's all sorts of rumors and ridiculousness that kind of is kind of said to go on within the music industry. But for someone who's been in it for so long and someone who is obviously established in the game, like, what have your experiences been like?
I mean, I think sometimes I think that we're just a little bit, if a door doesn't open, we kind of necessarily, we don't see it as being either didn't open it because they were racist or they felt a way about it. I think that we're a little bit conditioned to be like, okay, if somebody doesn't want to mess around, let's go knock on another door. And while I think nowadays the newer generation are not having that, they want to know why that door ain't opening. And if it's not opening because of the color of your skin or because of what it might be, they're calling you out on that very, very quickly. And, you know, there is a plus side and a negative side to that. And I think the plus side is obviously that we should be in a day and an age where if something like that, sexism, racism, anything that's going on, that if you feel that somebody else is discriminating, you should be able to call that out in a safe place, in a safe environment. I think the negative point of that is that people will get scared and then opportunities go to the wrong person. So, you know, the last thing you really need is a great opportunity to go to a person that is not doesn't deserve that, but also not a great person. You know, if you just look at Love Island, you know, we have two, and I know it's weird to come back to that, and you know, I know it's hot topic to everything, but you know, you have two British Asians on there, and you know that sometimes, you know, people complain they want representation. People want representation, and the representation they put into a household is two females who, you know, are just doing are just normal. But then now you have a lot of people that are complaining about the representation. So sometimes you can't pick and choose. You know, you need to understand that, you know, there is a place for it, and if you feel that you don't deserve that, don't push it. There's, you know, we are everywhere, but there's no need for us to be everywhere, if that makes sense. You know, you can go across the whole globe. There are Asians everywhere that are doing things, and you know, it's not necessarily that we need to be in every single space. What we do need to be is we need to be in the right spaces.
Yeah, and I think that is the kind of what I was gonna make a point out about Love Island, which is like, so personally, I don't really care less, as in whoever wants to go and do whatever, like go and do it. Like, mad it up your it. Like, what am I gonna say? Yeah. But then on the flip side, I feel like a lot of the time people are like, oh, we want representation, but we don't want representation like that. And it's like, well, what do you want? And then it's kind of like, are you just going to complain from the sidelines, or are you going to go do something? So Yeah, and again, I think you're right, which is we don't need to be everywhere. We need to be in the correct places. And I think for me personally, especially with this podcast, which is it's trying to showcase our community
Yeah,
without like putting like Skepta said, like as in the South Asian, like, so Africa isn't just loads of places where you've got like malnourished kids, and equally the South Asian community isn't just a bunch of old women who work in factories and can't talk English properly. Like as in we're so diverse and complex, and I feel like as we were discussing earlier, which is like the black community, you have such an established industry around music, art, culture. You have commentary shows. You have all sorts that just is around this, and I don't see it anywhere within our community, within the brown community. And I feel like also just bridging, not even bridging gaps, but just kind of like having conversations like this with yourself. Like I can't imagine Sikh channel, for argument's sake, reaching out and be like, "Oh, let's have a discussion about Punjabi music or whatever." And I also feel like, so I had a podcast with Indy Bassi, who's a boxer,
yeah,
and like when I was talking to him, because I grew up in the 90s, saying turban, went to school. I think there was like two turban wearing Sikhs in the whole school. You'd get bullied constantly. And there were no Sikh role models besides obviously my dad and my brother, but like they don't, like they're family.
sure.
And then I was talking to Indy Bassi and I was like, do you feel like you're a bit of a role model then, considering you're a Sikh, you're in a sport, you're in kind of a place of like limelight? And he was like, well, I don't really, but I guess now you said it, it makes sense. And I think that's just it, because when I was growing up, you go through this kind of identity issue, which is, well, I don't fit in with all these Gaudiya, but I also don't fit, like I'm not from there, but I'm not from here kind of complex. And I feel like the more that we can showcase our community, have these type of discussions, especially for the younger generations to listen to, if one of them feels like, oh yeah, I can, like if he's a DJ, I can be a DJ. If he's a boxer, I can be a boxer. If he's gonna do X, Y, and Z, I can definitely do it. And
Yeah,
so I really appreciate like the honesty and just the conversation full stop, because I really feel like people will definitely be able to take something from this.
yeah, man. I mean, like I think that you're right there, and Idibasi's amazing. I've spoken to before, interviewed him last year on our show, and I think it's important that we now highlight those kind of people. So, I mean, we're doing this podcast in the middle of August. We've just had the Olympics, and we've highlighted on our show four Olympians: Harleen Kaur, um, Rajiv, Usef. But we've had like a couple of people on that are British Asians that necessarily you wouldn't hear about, that are competing at a level. And we want it to be that so the next generation gets inspired so they can go to the Olympics, because my family were in the national hockey team for Africa, for Kenya. So and I take that with pride, because I look at that and I go, I'm an uncle of mine competed in the Olympics. He represented a nation at the highest level you can ever imagine. Now you have like Pauline Kaur, who is now martial arts. You have loads of different. Even let's take away Amir Khan of what he is now, and maybe he's turned into a celebrity. But for British boxing, of course you had people come before him, but as an Olympian, as a fighter, he was amazing. And people forget that he represented not even his like Pakistan or anything like that. He represented Britain. This brown brother, and we have to start realizing that we have got people in the right place. But unless you highlight that they're there, the next generation are just gonna go over it, because social media and everything is now washing people, and that can mean that the right people, like I said, the right people don't get a look in, and the wrong people do. Your role model turns very, very turns from a good person to not such a great person very, very quickly. I think that's where you kind of have to, kind of highlight, and podcasts like this and conversations that I had with different people, are very, very important.
No, definitely. Just then coming back to kind of Panjabi Hit Squad and your career and everything. So for me, and I think for a lot of people who are of a similar age to myself, they will remember songs that you guys did with Ms Scandalous and Alyssia and a few others. I think you also worked with Rahat Fateh. So how did so from what I gather, Ms Scandalous and Alyssia were almost like artists that you guys had I guess trained or nurtured over time and then created songs with. Obviously, Rahat Fateh is more of a collaboration. So with the first two, like how did that come about? What goes on when you're working on something like that? And then with Rahat, how did that collaboration come together?
Well, I mean, the Alyssia and Ms Scandalous. So Ms Scandalous was a couple of years below me in school, and then we did a song, Hi Hi. And then, I just said to D one day, I said, we need a female MC of this. It'd be great if we got like a female on this. And again, you got to understand that Punjabi music, maybe now it might be a little bit more different, but at the time there was a great ratio of like 95% male to like 5% female within the Asian music industry. It was so ridiculous, and we kind of wanted to change that, why not? So when we knew Ms Scandalous, she used to work in a record shop in Southall. D went in there and she knows us anyway. So she was like, yo, I firstly, she said she writes, she does spoken word and she does poetry. She does that. That's actually where she comes from. And he was like, okay, cool. Do you rap? She goes, yeah, I rap it all. And he was like, okay, cool. Well, rap to me on the spot. D, we always say, this is what D always says. It's a famous line throughout in the 2000s was, yo, go on, do it on the spot. So she started rapping. He was like, okay, cool. What are you doing after you finish work? She's like, I'm just going to go home, whatever. He's like, our studio is literally around the corner. Come by, I've got a song for you to be on. So she gets to the studio and I'm like, yo, I haven't seen her in probably like maybe a couple of years. So I was like, yo, what's going on? Catching up and all the rest of it. And then she was like, yeah, let's hear the beat. And then she heard the beat. She did her raps. And then then she came back and did some more. And then, then we and I see her being not only a star. I'm not interested in stars. I'm interested in people that represent the culture. So that's what I'm interested in more than anything else. And that's what it was for her. It wasn't about her selling millions and zillions of records, it was about her representing the culture in the way that was then. Yeah. So, when she made Hi Hi Man, it made her into a star, man. And I'm glad that she got to experience that because she definitely deserved it. Alyssia in the same thing, we needed a singer that would sing Punjabi and Hindi lyrics and, wasn't very like typical Punjabi. So at the moment, you've got the Bhangra songs and everything coming out. So yeah, then we kind of just switched the format and made an album with her that was a little less more soul and Asian orientated and more hip hop and R&B orientated. So yeah, we switched that up and again, we were happy with both things because, they get spoken about, their songs get played. And on top of that, we, promoted great voices, so that's the main thing. Rahat was maybe a little bit different. So we had the beat going for a little bit of time. We had a couple of singers on there beforehand. And then the opportunity came up that we could get Rahat Fateh in the song. And this is when Rahat Fateh wasn't well known. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So we literally did the song. He sent back the vocals. They sounded amazing. They sounded like what we needed to. And then literally, I think a month later, I think Teri Aur and Ore Pia and all those kind of songs came out. And then we were like, this guy's like an absolute megastar, man. Like, what is going on here? And then he just just kept on making hit after hit after hit after hit. And then I think by the time that we sorted out paperwork with him and everything, I think it was near enough 2011. And then I think 2012, we ended up dropping Dilmira. And then, yeah, man, it's collaboration at the end of the day, something like that, still doesn't really happen that often. So, yeah, man.
Oh, definitely. This is again a question just off the cuff. Who is the most interesting person that you've either worked with or you've met during your time in the music industry? And why are they so interesting? It could be anything. It could be, I don't know, it just could be anything as ridiculous or as crazy as you want it to be.
I don't know. I mean, you know, when we speak to different artists, I think we get to know them in a different light. You know, I think if you think of speaking to Raj Fateh Khan, you know, you get to hear his side of the story about his days with his uncle and touring on stage. And, you know, there's videos online that you can see that that Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan is teaching him on stage. They're at a live concert and this kid is 5 years old and he's making him do sargams and everything. And, you know, and it's crazy, you know, and you watch that and then you ask him about that. And for him, it's just like, yeah, it was just another day at the office, really. But for us, it's like you're looking at the master giving the student the keys, the knowledge, you know, like, so I think conversations like that, I think a lot of the conversations have been taking place outside of our culture as well. So, you know, like some of the artists that we've worked with in the past, Nathan, who would people remember from like the early 2000s, from Coming to My Room. He was a really good, you know, we spoke to him a lot about life and things like that. And Sway, again, same thing, like we, you know, speak to him. Fateh from the USA, Canada, you know, we went out with him and grabbed some food once. And, you know, I think the thing is everyone's interesting because they come from different places. So my upbringing in Southall is going to be different to say Fateh's upbringing because he might not be closely related to Asian culture as probably we are. I mean, being in Southall, you can step outside your door and the culture is there completely in your face, you know, where other people might have to travel for that. So I think there's so many different conversations, you know, that can take place and be, you know, I respect everyone that is in this.
No, definitely. Two last questions. And so the first one is, obviously talking about popular culture, like what was it like being signed by Def Jam? And what was it like working with some of these mainstream kind of pop culture artists like Mariah Carey?
I mean, again, like, so being signed to Def Jam, amazing. It's probably like if you're a hip hop fan and you are within black culture, if you're a fan of anything that's got to do with music, you know that Def Jam is probably the most pivotal record label throughout the world. And to now get signed to that was like an absolute amazing dream. Not even come true. We were just not even like, we're signed to Def Jam. We're just like, what the hell is happening?
Did you guys always plan, like, was your guys' objective to always get signed by a big label like Def Jam? Or was it just something that happened and you guys were like, wow?
Well, I mean, so the main focus of Panjabi Hit Squad was that we needed to get our music, whether it be from us or from the music scene, and give it to cultures that don't necessarily hear it. So, you know, when we first started, we were doing collaborations with Selfridges and Nike and all these different people, you know, to kind of make sure that our music was heard, not only heard in like an Indian restaurant, but I'm talking about heard in the correct way. So that's why we always try to deliver the music to whoever it is we play it to, whether it be on radio, whether it be at a wedding, whether it be in a club. We like to deliver it in a way that they get it. That is probably the reason that we have had success, is because we're good at doing that. You know, so that's the first initial thing. We wanted to make sure our music was heard. Once our music started getting heard, people started becoming curious. And this is what happened with Def Jam, which was they were like, okay, cool. We've heard the Punjabi MC song and everyone's twisting light bulbs right now and all the rest of it. What else do you have? Okay, cool. Now you can turn around and play them. Dr. Zeus's Ani Kuriye. And I'm talking about Ani Kuriye over Kangana just because Kangana was more of an R&B record as opposed to like, you know, Ani Kuriye was like literally like a Bolia kind of type of thing, right? You play that and then, you know, we play them like Hi and, you know, you play them Pusra Dale by IDB and, you know, you get all of these songs and now they're looking at it, they're not investing into like just one record, they're investing into a scene. So that's why they signed us. They signed us on the fact that, all right, guys, you know what, you guys can not only produce records, but you can definitely throw your music forward as well, which is why our album with Def Jam was a compilation first. And then we had like all of our friends on there, Raghav, Juggy D, Jay Sean, everyone you can imagine, Skills Inc. Everyone was on there. And, you know, that was like the introduction of us to everyone. And then with that, you know, came along, Fat Man Scoop, who was like, yeah, man, like I mess around with this Punjabi stuff, man, like definitely, you know, Mariah Carey again, like same thing, like, see, the thing is about the Mariah Carey records, Ashanti and all the rest of it was that they're more spec mixes. So the way that the Mariah thing came out a little bit differently. So we did the song with Mariah, and usually with the mixes, you don't interact with the artist at all. You just do your bit and send it in, and that's all it was. At the same time, because that was going through Def Jam, we're in the Def Jam office, kind of always trying to be up there and get things. And I think at the time we were trying to get like Jay-Z tickets or something like that. We'd get there and like we walk into a meeting and Mariah Carey's on the phone and they're talking about our song and they were like, shh, Mariah's on the phone. And she was like, yeah, I really like this car. I need you just to like maybe turn up the sitars a little bit. And then, yeah, that's a go as well. And we were like, what? She's actually talking about, like, she literally signs off her own spec mixes. So, you know, again, like it's things like that that are amazing. Ashanti's the same. And, you know, I think what people understand is that it doesn't matter what caliber of artist it is, as long as you're professional, what you do and you're passionate, other artists respect that completely, you know. So yeah, man, it was an amazing experience being signed to that and an amazing time as well.
That's mad. That is mad. So this isn't really a question. This is more kind of like me taking my proverbial cap off, really, which is like, so do you guys realize, or do you guys ever sit down and talk amongst yourselves and actually kind of take in the fact that you've had such a lasting impact on popular culture, especially South Asian, British Asian, whatever you want to label it, culture? Because like I could sit here and we've spoken about so many of your songs going back from like the late 90s, early 2000s, all the way up until now. I was like 10 maybe, and my older brother would be driving. I think he just got his license, so he was insured on my mom's car, which was a
that old
Saab.
scam.
Yeah, which was a Saab. It was so bad, like you could hear the engine from round the corner. And whenever we'd go anywhere, we'd have a CD in the radio, and it'd have a mixture of Panjabi Hit Squad, Panjabi MC, all of these songs that we've discussed. So, like, do you ever take it in, or are you guys just kind of in it? So you just like you don't quite realize, and you just kind of, for you guys, it's just getting up in the morning and going to work.
I mean, I think you're right. Like, as in, I think now it is a little bit. You kind of don't realize it as much. I think now that people are speaking a lot more about, you know, an impact that we might have had on their lives, I think is beautiful. I'm glad that we've touched people in that kind of way, you know, and I'm happy about it. We don't, like I said, we don't really, it doesn't go to our heads that we do that. I think the thing is that there's still work to be done. You know, it's like the day hasn't finished just yet so that we can have a beer at the end of it. There's still so much more that needs to be done. And, you know, like, it's the same thing. Like, if you think of that, you know, we're pushing the culture and it's got to where it is now, but it can still do a lot more and a lot better. You know, so we're, you know, we're happy that something like Young Sing and Daytimers have a great event. You know, I don't want to be a part of what they're doing. I want to see it because I want to feel it, experience it. You know, I don't want to jump on somebody else's wave because that's their wave. They haven't, and all of the crew that are there with them, I'm happy to support them, but they haven't come through being like, yeah, man, like Panjabi Hits Squad. They've developed their own wave in the same way that we developed our own wave, you know. And I think that people need to just like respect the grind that they're putting in right now. You know, you don't need to claim their fame, if that makes sense. They're doing it their way, you know what I'm saying? And I'm glad that like, I'm glad they've come forward. I'm glad that Young Sing's come forward. I'm glad that like Gracie T, Chandon, all these people are together now doing something that they love and they're pushing themselves and they're going to make it, you know. And I'm glad that like we can highlight that, you know. So even if I had Gracie T on the other day for a mix and, you know, things like that, I love it, man. Like, that's exactly what we're happy about, you know. And again, same thing, you know, the day's not done for us yet. You know, we have to help them get to where they're going, and then the generation that comes after that, you know, and so forth and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, I'm glad that there are conversations taking place where people can respect that we have put in a graft into all of this. But in no way is it like, yeah, man, I made it. You know, next time people see me, they need to buy me a drink or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I will literally buy my own drinks. You can buy me a drink if you want, but also you'll see me at your local samosa shop buying samosas with you, chatting to you. Like we're just we're the thing is about the culture, you should never ever leave it. Doesn't matter what state it's in. You know, that should always be what it is you're about. You know, with us, we've had the opportunity to turn around and change our name from Panjabi Hit Squad. Do you understand how hard it is for, and I'm talking this hard for other people as well, but for hard to be Panjabi Hit Squad, to have your album out a week after 9/11, right? I'm talking about in entertainment because I know it's hard for different people for different reasons. But man, we were getting our doors slammed in our face as well. Like, yeah, no. You guys are like, if anything got to do, like even when we had to trademark Punjabi, we had to go there. Mark had to sit there and create a spreadsheet about what are the Taliban and what are Punjabis. And he had this whole thing about that. So when it comes to it, that's why I'll never, ever abandon my name. Yeah. People can call us whatever they want to call us. People call us Hit Squad or whatever it might be, blah, blah, blah. But the Panjabi Hit Squad name remains, and it remains strong. And that's the reason why that we do what we do. I will turn up at any event. I'll turn up to a festival and say my name with pride. I'll turn up to your local birthday party and say my name with pride. It's all the same thing. So unless you're pushing the culture, this doesn't mean anything at all, man.
Well, just before I get to the actual last question, I think one thing that I could definitely vouch for is just the humility and the respect that you kind of bring. I've only, like, this is the first face-to-face conversation we've had, but even just the interactions over Twitter, or even when you joined the space the other day and we were just talking about food, like, everyone was amazed that you had joined, because to them it's like, oh my God, Panjabi Hit Squad. But I think that goes to show in a nutshell just what you guys are about, because like, you joined. There was no issue, no qualms, no like, oh, you got to talk to me like this or say that or whatever. It was, hey, you guys seem to be having a good to laugh. Let's join in. All right, let's and it was brilliant. Everyone came out of that space going, I can't believe Panjabi Hit Squad joined. It was so fun, blah blah blah, and all the rest of it. So I can definitely vouch for that. Just off the back of that, then, so obviously you must have heard all of the bad food takes we had in that space, like Makki di roti belongs in the bin, or kheer isn't a very nice dessert, or whatever, right? Now, I like to end with asking the guest, especially like recently, what is your, you can either give me a bad food take or a good food take, but what is your kind of bad or good Punjabi food take?
I mean, I was going to say Saag and Makki di Roti is a good food take, but clearly I think I'm going to get cancelled, which was the word that everyone was using the other day. It's hilarious because to think that you'd get cancelled for eating food, like, I don't understand that one little bit. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at food heaven and food hell, food heaven for me is going to be, do you know what? I like a good kebab, man. I'm not going to lie. Like, if I was, just, you know, Shahi Naan kebab in Sassel is like the favorite. And that's just where I love. And I think it also, you know, when it used to be on the bridge, I used to love it because it was like a party spot at the same time. You know, like you'd meet the people that you're with, and, you know, the people that you play out to and that you know, and all that kind of stuff. So that's food heaven. Food hell, man. Again, like, I mean, yellow dal is just like the worst. I mean, like, I mean, you know, not to just pick up one restaurant, because there are many, many restaurants that sell great kebabs. But like Shahi Naan kebab, it's also like an icon within Southall. You know, it's got great history. You know, it's been there since like the late 60s, 70s. So, you know, and in one spot serving, you know, very, very few dishes. And you can think, wow, you know, they came. But also, like, I remember, like, I became vegetarian for a couple of years. And again, not being able to eat Shahi Naan was like the worst thing I could ever think of. Like, I was like, why? You know, especially late studio night sessions, you'd want to go get something to eat, you know, it'd be one. And I went there and I spoke to the guy and I was like, yo, like, I can make me something that I can have as vegetarian. And he did the simplest of things. He literally gave me a naan with salad and put loads of chutney on the front. And he said, eat that. And I ate it. And it was like the most amazing thing in the world. I was like, you know what, this is, and that was like, at least I didn't have to like go away from too much Shahi Naan as it is. But yeah, like, you know, that's my food heaven, food hell, man. Like, that's what it is.
No, I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that. All right, just to check then, I've gone through all the questions that I wanted to ask you. I just want to check, is there anything that you wanted to add in or
No,
include or anything? Cool, brilliant,
no, no,
brilliant.
cool. That's absolutely fine.
Now, all I can say, obviously, to wrap up is just thank you so much for your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I've really enjoyed the fact that you've been just so open and honest about it as well. Definitely appreciate that. Otherwise than that, I will leave you to the rest of your day. I genuinely can't say thank you enough. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, I'll leave you to it. And yeah, thank you. Thank you
No
so
problem,
much.
man. Yeah, speak soon, man. Take care.
Take care. Take care,
Bye
man.
bye.
Bye bye.